But Jessica, who do you think? Judge's home run or Ohtani's performance in their loss?
I mean, we all love Aaron Judge and his home runs, but to me, I mean, Shohei Ohtani, it just doesn't get old. I mean,
I
we
know.
saw in the World
No.
Baseball Classic, he comes out, right, Victoria? I mean, Freddie knows this. Like, we talk about this all the time. He is ridiculous. His pitches, that sweeping slider in the zone. I mean, the fact that he's popping 102, it'll never get old. And you're right. The biggest storyline, though, is we're not going to see this guy on a championship team unless the Angels trade him away. That
Mm.
to me was the statement opening day. He loses the game after the strikeouts, 10 strikeouts that he had, the performance that he gave. Shoot, he even did it with the bat. They've got Mike Trout. We've talked about this so much. But to me, that is more of a storyline because we're going to see Aaron Judge hitting home runs all season long.
The worst thing that could have happened to the Los Angeles Angels was the fact that Shohei Ohtani in Japan won the World Baseball Classic. It was the first time on really U.S. soil that he had a chance to play for something worthwhile. And what did he do? He went out there and delivered. They were down 3-0 to Mexico in the semifinals, and he led the way for them to have that comeback win to get to the championship game. And then you strike out Mike Trout, your teammate, your ace, Maine Boone-Coon, on a 3-2 frisbee slider, frisbee curveball that got rid of him and won the championship for Japan. When that happened, I said, if I'm an Angels fan, I'm doing like this. No, no.
Baseball fans, too.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
baseball fans are going to be fine. But Angels fans, like, look, we're always going to be the second team in Los Angeles. I'm speaking as a Mets fan. No matter what the Mets do, they're always going to be the second team in New York. It's always going to be Yankees here and Mets way below here. If you're an Angels fan, you have this once-in-a-generational player, and you're going to lose him after 2023 because he knows. I went out there last night, struck out 10 batters, didn't give up a run, had 2 hits allowed and 3 walks, and we lose to the Oakland Athletics, soon to be the Las Vegas Athletics, 2-1 in extra innings because we couldn't find an extra run to help me out. Those are the kind of things that are weighing on the mind of a guy who made $65 million last year in baseball salary and endorsements. He could be the first $500 to $600 million player when it comes to a contract. Why would he want to sign with the Angels and completely waste the best years of his career when they don't have any kind of infrastructure that's going to help him? Oh, what's the old line from Jay-Z? I'm a businessman. He's a businessman when it comes to Shohei Ohtani. And it's not good for Shohei Ohtani business to stay with the Angels and waste your years when you go to the Hollywood Swingers, where they have swimming pools and movie stars with the Los Angeles Dodgers and compete for a championship a lot better year after year because they're going to put players and have the money in place to make sure you're not wasting the best years of your baseball career.
Now, speaking of the Mets, because that's a conversation. Ohtani, unfortunately, we could keep going on and on. Now, speaking of the Mets, it was not a perfect day for the Mets, whose pitching situation has taken a few hits early on, with first Edwin Diaz going down and now Justin Verlander on the IL. How worried, Jessica, should Mets fans be?
Well, Freddie, I mean, he knows this better than anybody. I mean, Mets fans are always worried. Like it doesn't matter if there's a win
Ew.
streak. There's always waiting for that moment, right? And I know to kick off the season, that's not what you want. The Edwin Diaz one really, really hurts. I mean, that was the biggest blow I think for this team, just because of how good he is at closing out games. And I get it. Justin Verlander's your big dog, but this injury isn't a serious one. You'll see him back out on the field, and really, ultimately, the reason why Verlander, Max Scherzer are on this team is because of the latter half of the season. Keep him healthy throughout the regular season. I don't think the concern level should be super high for Verlander right now.
100% with you. And to go back to your point about Edwin Diaz, it is really hard to replace a guy like that at the back end of your rotation when it comes to being that dominant closer, because we knew he was going to be good. But last year, there were times you would get up there, big 1, 2, 3 strikes you out, 1, 2, 3 strikes you out, 1, 2, 3 strikes you out. The inning was over after about 9 pitches. That's how terrific he was for the New York Mets. And that's why if you're the Mets, you can have a bullpen by committee, but I've always been a big believer that stars matter. And they had a star in Edwin Diaz that they're not going to have. And when you don't have that kind of player, that opposing teams know that, man, he gets in that game, we're going to be taking off our bat and gloves and heading to the post-game buffet a lot sooner than we want to. That's the kind of impact that he had for the New York Mets. Because you know Verlander, you're right, Jessica, he's going to be back, he's going to be fine. This guy last year was 18-4, 1.75 ERA. I don't think he forgot how to pitch a baseball going from one team to another. He's going to be okay. Same thing with Max Scherzer. They got enough people to fortify that rotation. When you have that guy at the back end that can really dominate people and close out games like that, those guys are practically irreplaceable no matter how many guys you may have in that bullpen and arms by committee setup that they're going to have to think that's going to stem the tide. those guys like that, you cannot replace those guys like Edwin Diaz.
No, and hopefully we'll see him back. Hopefully soon. Hopefully. Fingers crossed for Mets fans. Now, we saw baseball's new rules play a big role in games yesterday, and games finished very quickly. We had 14 timer violations, and the opening day game time average was down by 30 minutes. Now, Jessica, what were your thoughts on the new rules after day one?
Well, we saw double the amount of stolen base attempts as well. I know those big pizza box bases are making guys say, let's do this.
Yeah.
No, and I love it, right? We talk about the shorter games. That's a huge point. I mean, look at that. Under 3 hours on average. Sign me up. And again, that's dead time. That's the kind of time between pitches. We're talking around, we're going. Now, the biggest thing that I noticed, though, opening day is going to be the weird stuff, right? We saw, first of all, Rafael Devers got rung up on a called third strike because of that engagement. This is a piece that a lot of people don't know about. Everyone's thinking about the pitcher. They're watching him 15 seconds down. But when they get to that 8-second mark, the batter has to be engaged, meaning eyes face towards the pitcher. I do not like this part of the rule. Rafael Devers was called for strike 3 because he was in the box, but he wasn't looking at the pitcher. Hey, if he's not looking at the pitcher, that's his fault. Throw the ball, you're good, right? But they called him for strike 3. There was also a play with Jeff McNeil and Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso, after a foul ball, took a while to get back to first base. Got to that 8 seconds. They gave Jeff McNeil down 0-2 against the reigning Cy Young, Sandy Alcantara, for strike 2. So that kind of stuff, I think the 8-second is what I want to see go. But I love, love, love the pitch clock.
They played yesterday's games like they had to go to a PTA meeting. I never thought I would see that in Major League Baseball series, to be honest with you. But the one thing I'll say real quickly, make sure you keep enforcing this. Don't let everybody get used to things, and then you get lax with it when you get to June, July, and August. If you're going to be this judicious on day one, you better make sure you're judicious about this in day 100.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.